We are in industry hour for mechanical engineering, which I think is the best major. I'm Marie. I'm substituting for KRISTEN Bergen, who's on vacation this week. I'm excited to welcome some great guests here tonight. We have two recent alums, hopefully two. We're waiting on Christina Pacifico. And we've got one current awesome undergraduate student. Remember for you guys to keep your camera and sound off so that we can focus on our guests. And get yourself comfy. If you have any questions, just type them into the chat as we're going along, because really my only job is to monitor the chat here tonight so that Karen Lewis can focus on our guests and on the questions. So our guests tonight are Michael Hughes, Christina Pacifico, and Yashna Bansal, and they're going to introduce themselves in just a few minutes. But first, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, KRISTEN Kettering, from the CCPD. And the CCPD, if you don't know, is our career center here on campus. And she's going to share some information about what they do in the CCPD. And she's also going to share some information on careers in mechanical engineering and some statistics. So KRISTEN, it is all yours, my friend. Go for it.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen now and see if I know what I'm doing.
We can see it.
Okay, great. Like Marie said, my name is KRISTEN Kettering, and I am a career counselor at the CCPD. And tonight, specifically, I work in the students in the School of Engineering, as well as the Lally School. All right, so mechanical engineering. Let's talk a little bit about how the CCPD. Can everybody see, can you see my screen still? I hope.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you so much. Okay, so how can the CCPD help? We can help with all areas of career planning, career preparation, anything like that. So we help with resume and cover letters. We can help, the very beginning stages all the way to just, adjusting your resume on a semester basis after you get one done. And we can help you with cover letters, and those are great to do when you're applying to internships and full-time jobs. We can help you with, again, all aspects of interview preparation, and we can get as formal or informal with that as you'd like. So we can do a full-blown mock interview, or we can just kind of talk to you about what types of questions to expect and maybe practice some of them with you. We also help with internship, co-op, and full-time job search. So an internship is typically a semester. A co-op is a semester and a summer together. So it's just a longer internship. And of course, your full-time job search. We help with all aspects of those. When you do get an offer letter from a company, we can help you with salary negotiation or just with any questions you have about your offer letters, including internships as well. We can also help you. We have access to career assessments that will actually pair you to majors at RPI and then different careers. So we can help you in choosing a major and your career path. We can help you with all aspects of the graduate school application process, including personal statement writing, everything like that. And of course, we help with employer correspondence. So any kind of employer correspondence that you have a question about, either formation of emails or messages on LinkedIn or anything like that. So that's pretty much what we do at the CCPD. So I just want to give you some information about mechanical engineering graduates in general. So we do statistics every single year. For the class of 2019, we have an average salary, so this is all reported from graduates, of $64,000 and change there. And then we have a range. So meaning this is the lowest, $52,000 that was reported for the class of 2019, and the highest is $80,000. And again, this is entry-level positions. And then if you go on BLS.gov, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's a great website, you can look up all different types of occupations and salaries and all different information you can think of about careers. But the 2019 median and annual salary for mechanical engineers is 88 and change, 88,000. Now keep in mind that's all levels. So that's entry level and then engineers that have been working for a while. So just to give you some salary statistics, this is just a sampling of some of the employers that hire our 2019 graduates in mechanical engineering. So you can see it's all over the place. We have from, you know, the Air Force, the military, to huge companies, to somewhat smaller companies. And it's just all over the place. So it's really, mechanical engineers are very, very employable, which is really nice. This is just a sampling. So in Handshake, check it out, because if you're looking for either a spring internship or a spring and summer co-op or a full-time position or a summer position, check out Handshake, because that's what's being put on Handshake now, is just all the spring and summer positions. And just wanted to give you again another sampling of some of the things that are on Handshake as of today. So for internships and co-ops, we have Sensata, located in Massachusetts, within a couple hours from here. They're looking for summer interns. We have Tesla, looking for a spring 2021 mechanical engineering intern. And then full-time opportunities, we have Lutron, and we have the Naval Nuclear Laboratory. So again, just all different types of companies all the time. And Handshake is important to check out, because it's all the companies that are on there have reached out to RPI and want to recruit RPI students. So let's talk a little bit about skills to emphasize on your resume for mechanical engineering. So what are our employers looking for in mechanical engineers? They're looking for your manufacturing and machining skills, definitely. They're looking for, you know, your software knowledge of programs, some coding languages, your math and science skills, leadership or project management. So that could be even you led a project in one of your classes on your resume. You can, you know, make sure you emphasize that. Your problem solving skills, just like all engineers, your teamwork skills, your creativity, and your verbal and written communication skills. So these are the skills to really emphasize on your resume and in an interview. So how do you get in contact with the CCPD for more information? So you can schedule a 30-minute appointment with one of us, one of the career counselors. And again, I'm one of the career counselors on Handshake under counseling and appointments. And all appointments are virtual at this time due to the virus. We're not in our offices. So that would be email consults, regular phone calls, or WebEx meetings. We also have walk-in hours every single day for 2 hours. That's where you can just hook on to the career counselor's WebEx room and wait, and you know, you have about 10 or 15 minutes with a career counselor. So if you don't have time to make an appointment and you just need a quick appointment, you can check out our walk-in hours, and these are the times: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And that is it. I just wanted to stop sharing this. And thank you so much for that. And I hope to see appointments with a lot of you.
So KRISTEN, I just want to open it up for any students that might have any questions for you and about anything related to the
Sure.
CCPD. I don't see anything yet in the chat, but I'm going to give it a minute. And while we see if any students have any questions, I'm wondering if, I'm hoping that some of the students who are on this chat and on this call have gone to the career fair this past weekend, the NSBE SHIP career fair this past weekend. And I'm wondering if you could give us, and maybe give them, any of them who attended, some ideas about anything they should be doing this week by way of follow-up if they attended the career fair. And if they did not attend the career fair, what should they do to get prepared for the spring one?
Yeah, absolutely, Marie. Thank you for asking that. So if you did attend the career fair, a great thing to do is to contact the individuals that you had a chat with or you had a video meeting with through email. Hopefully you received their contact information. If you did, great. Just follow up with an email, letting them know, reminding them of who you are, that you met them at the RPI Virtual Career Fair, and that you're, thank them for their time that they spent with you. Remind them that let them know again that you're very interested in the opportunities at their company. Remind them of your skills, and you can always attach a resume to the email if you didn't get a chance to share your resume with them, and give them additional contact information. But mostly you're just reaching out to them to thank them and then just remind them of who you are. If you had any specific conversations with them, bring that up in the email. So again, they'll remember who you are. If you didn't get their contact information and you very much would like their contact information, you can do a couple of things. You can contact our office and we can see if we can get the contact information for you, or you can go on Handshake and look it up under the employer tab. There's a lot of employer contact information there, or you can get on LinkedIn and look up the person there and message them through LinkedIn. If you didn't attend the career fair over the weekend, we have one. The CCPD holds one in early February, and we will be holding a lot of events in November and December to get you all ready for that, and again in January. But the biggest thing is to find out which companies are going to be at our career fair and researching them so you can show sincere interest and ask specific questions and practice your pitch that you're going to say and getting your resume ready. So I see there is a question in the chat feature here. How would you recommend becoming an engineer of six figures, someone who stands out from an average engineer and is able to specialize within a certain company? Great question. It all depends. I mean, we do have engineering students that graduate and are making six figures. Typically that doesn't happen right away, but it does happen. And it all just depends on the bigger companies. So those are the students getting jobs at the bigger companies. So, do all your work now. Try to get internships, even if they're not with these bigger companies, but even if they're with smaller companies, but try to get some experience, some internships. Try to develop some leadership skills while you're at RPI. That's basically what those bigger companies are looking for. So leadership skills, past internship experience. And I would say that's really, beef up your coding skills. That really does set engineers apart a bit. Learn new coding languages, even if it's something that you're not especially interested in. Go above and beyond and learn maybe a new coding language that you're not taught at RPI, but it might be what they use at a particular company that you're interested in. So that's just a few suggestions I can make. No problem. Well, thank you very much for your time, everyone. I appreciate it. And like I said, I work with the students in the School of Engineering. So if anyone would like to meet with me, just get on Handshake, go press on Career Center and then Appointments, and you'll see my name there. I'd be happy to meet with any of you. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Kristen. Thank you so much. If there's any way you can keep the recording going, that would be great.
I will, yes.
Thanks. Have a nice rest of your night.
Thank you. You too.
Everyone who's on this meeting tonight will be getting a follow-up email from Kristen Bergen next week, and that will also have Kristen Kettering's contact information as well as all of her slides from tonight. So if you missed something, you'll be able to see all of that. Now I'm going to turn this over to our fabulous mechanical engineering advisor, Karen Lewis. She also is the academic advisor for mechanical engineering, civil engineering, and environmental engineering. And I'm going to ask our panelists to turn on their cameras as well. We have not seen Christina Pacifico yet, and I've been texting her like a mad woman. She does work for Elon Musk at Tesla. So, she might have been pulled into a last minute meeting at work, and because she's in California with the time difference, they are in the middle of their workday. So she might not be available this evening, and she's not answering my text. So I'm assuming something definitely happened at work, but we'll hopefully get her on this call. If not, maybe Karen and I were talking about maybe we'll do a video interview with her and we'll post it when we post the rest of tonight's program next week when Kristen Bergen gets back. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Karen Lewis. And please, as we go along and you're hearing questions and answers from our panelists, feel free to type questions into the chat about anything. And as I said, I'm probably going to ask this panel the question that Sebastian asked of the CCPD, and we can get your perspective on that question as well. So thanks, Karen. Go for it.
Thanks, Marie. Hi, guys. As Marie mentioned, my name is Karen Lewis. Can you guys turn your microphones off for me, please?
I really just wanted the mac and cheese, but then I figured I should get,
All right, I took care of that. Anyway, I want mac and cheese too. My name is Karen Lewis, and I'm the advisor for mechanical engineering as Marie Town's the best major. And we have some great people to talk to tonight. So I'm not going to waste my time with introductions. I'm going to have them introduce themselves to you. We'll start with Michael. And if you can provide us with your name, where you work, where you are from and live now, the degree, and where you went to school. So take it away, Mike.
Thank you, Karen.
Can you
Happy to
remind
be
Claire?
here.
Why is he? Oh, maybe.
No problem. All right. So, as Karen said, my name's Michael Hughes. I'm a bit of an oddity because I actually work for Rensselaer as well. I'm an instructor and the director of faculty development for Rensselaer's Hartford campus. You may have seen Hartford as a school whenever you went to register for classes. So I'm part of the leadership team over there. I actually grew up about 20 minutes out in the country outside of Troy, New York. I went to a small high school, and I currently live across the river, a bit south of Troy, New York, in an area called Albany. I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering, and I did my PhD in mechanical engineering as well. And once again, I'll be a bit of an oddity here because I did part of my undergrad and my PhD at RPI. So I've had a variety of different roles during my time at RPI, and I'm happy to answer any and all types of questions that folks have tonight. So excited to be here. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Mike. And for our undergrad, soon to be graduating student, I have Yashna here. So I'm going to let her introduce herself, name what you're currently majoring in as opposed to working, where you're from and live now, and the degree you're working towards. And obviously you're here with us at RPI. So take it away, Yashna.
Yeah, so as Karen said, my name's Yashna. I am currently studying mechanical and electrical engineering, so I'm doing a dual major. I'll be graduating this December, and future work, I will be at SpaceX starting January, which is really exciting. I'm from San Jose, California, so a bit of a ways out from here. So being at RPI was my first time on the East Coast, and then I'll be going back to California after graduating.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to start from the very beginning and ask some questions about why. And that's why everybody tonight is here, because maybe perhaps a lot of students are contemplating their major. So Mike, what made you decide to become a mechanical engineer?
It's a good question. I was thinking for a long time about what made me become a mechanical engineer. I think it was a combination of things. One, I always wanted to know how things worked. And so I felt like mechanical engineering was going to give me some insights on how things worked and how things were designed. I also found that mechanical engineering seemed rather broad, in that you can use it as a jumping off point to go in lots of different directions. And I had my kind of career in mind, and I saw that mechanical engineers were at every type of company out there. They didn't only work for one specific type of company or in any specific industry. So I think probably the fact that I could kind of go anywhere with it and at the same time solve problems with the things that I know and the things that I can do. So I think that was my primary motivators.
Awesome. And that's also what I hear from a lot of students as to why they choose mechanical is because it is that broad starting off point. So I like that. So Yashna, you're a dual electrical and mechanical. So did you start out that way? Like, was that your intention from the very beginning, or did you evolve to become a dual? Can you tell us a little bit about your process?
Yeah, so in high school, I did robotics, so that's how I got into engineering. So from that, I knew I wanted to do mechanical engineering for sure. So I came in as just a mechie, and then through my freshman year, I took a couple different classes in design studio and a class for electrical engineering because I was debating between dueling between either DIS, which is design innovation studio, and between electrical engineering because those were two areas I was also interested in from high school. And a piece of advice that I had gotten was to major in something broad, similar to what Michael was saying, of when you do something broad as your degree, you can take it anywhere you want and be specific either in your master's or later on. And so mechanical and electrical are both very broad majors. They encompass a lot. So I figured that was a better path to follow. And then over sophomore year, I enjoyed my classes in both areas and decided to stick with it.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, Mike, considering you do have an atypical job of an engineer, so to speak, can you tell me what the day-to-day function of your position is like?
Sure. So basically, the Rensselaer at Hartford campus serves the working professional population. So those of you who are going to go out and get jobs, you may find yourself a year or two or maybe just a month into your career finding that there's a career direction that you want to go. Maybe that's to move up in the company, move into a different position in a company, move to a new company, do something new essentially. So our job is really to serve the working professionals and helping them make those career transitions and to give them skills and abilities in specific areas like data analytics or mechanical engineering. So basically, what I do is a variety of project management, people management, forecasting, and preparing for semester coordination. Basically, I help run the business of of providing education to folks. So my industry is education, which is an industry, and so we basically go out to companies, we talk to them, we ask them what they want and need from their employees and what are the skill gaps, and then we build new programs around those skill gaps specifically for the working professional. So we kind of consider ourselves experts in online learning. So those of you might be able to appreciate that nowadays when it was just kind of a side thought before. But so that's basically what we do. And I talk to people a lot. I have 15 to 20 meetings, 1 hour meetings a week. And so I talk to people all day long. That's all I do.
Well, thank you for talking to us tonight. So Yashna, I know you're not officially working yet, but you have had some internship opportunities um, while while undergrad. Can you tell us a little bit about one of those?
Yeah, and I'll speak about my most recent one, but just for context, I've had 3 different internships till now, all in completely different areas too, which has helped me decide what I want to do with my dual major because it's so broad. So my first one was at Arista Networks, which is a company that builds switches and routers, and I worked with the manufacturing team. So that job was a lot more electrical focused, working on circuit boards. and circuit assembly. My second one was at Collins Aerospace, and I worked with the mechanical design for core electronics team. So that one was a lot more on the design and structural side, but I also did a lot of documentation while I was there. And then my most recent one was with SpaceX in LA, working with the build reliability team for the Raptor engine, and build reliability is like a fancy term they coined, which is just a fancier way of saying quality engineer, because they use different terms so that it encompasses more responsibilities. But during that internship, I did a lot during my day-to-day of very hands-on stuff. I was given a project of checking for any foreign object debris that would enter the engine during manufacturing, during machining. And then my job was to figure out how do we reduce this process, because we're building rocket engines and you don't want any chips in there, especially, and if you do mechanical engineering, you'll learn a lot more about this in like thermals and fluids and that stuff, but you don't want any chips that can interfere with liquid flow through the system, so oxygen and fuel flowing through it. So that was primarily my job, and it was I really enjoyed it because it was very hands-on. I got to learn a lot about the engine as I continued to work on it. And it was also a very social role because I was interacting with a lot of different groups in the company. So in my position, I talked to manufacturing engineers and design engineers, shop floor operators who are actually working on building parts, working on the manufacturing line. So it was just a very encompassing role where you work with a lot of different disciplines, which is something I really enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, I think we're going to move on to what your undergrad experience looks like for both of you. So if you could tell me about maybe perhaps professional groups or extracurriculars, obviously internships, and can you make any recommendations of organizations or clubs to our students about on your personal experience? We'll start with Mike.
Sure. I mean, internships are just an absolutely amazing opportunity. Interns at a lot of companies have like full perspective. They kind of get treated special. Maybe your day to day isn't super fun sometimes, but you get a lot of perspective. So I did an internship at a startup company and then ended up working there part time. So internships are huge. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that because it was fundamental to who I am, and that is even when I didn't have an internship, I worked part time. So I stacked fruit at grocery stores. I delivered mail. I put roofs on homes. And I think that just really solidified for me that I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life, right? And it made me appreciate also the people and the opportunities that Rensselaer has to offer. Um, there's good and bad associated with everything, but there's so much opportunity at RPI to go whatever direction you want. So I'm not going to say a specific club other than to say find what you're passionate about, and you will find other people at RPI who are also passionate about it, and they're just going to get you even more jazzed, and you're just going to fall into a niche thing that you love. So search that out. If you haven't found it, search it out. Spend all of your time other than taking classes searching that out, because I promise you will find it, and it will probably be life-changing if you don't have it already.
That's awesome advice. Thank you. And Yashna, for you, any clubs or anything that you've been involved with that you can make recommendations on?
I think like what Mike was saying, like finding your niche groups and like finding people who you feel happy with, people who you think you're learning from. And I think almost any group at RPI is going to offer that, because it's not necessarily like what the group you join is doing, but just building a network. So on campus, I've been involved with Engineering Ambassadors, which is a professional organization. I've been in Greek life. I've done residential assistance. So in each of those roles, you build a network. So when I was applying for my internships, and all 3 internships that I've gotten, like I got help from a connection, either from those organizations or someone I knew in high school. So I think that's where definitely explore clubs, explore different activities on campus, and try and build a network. as much as you can, and definitely apply for internships because you don't really know what you want to do until you're doing it. So the only way you're going to know what you want to do after you graduate is by doing an internship, seeing if you like the company, if you like the role. My first 2 internships were not necessarily things that I wanted to do full time, but it was still a really great experience because I got that opportunity to learn it while I was still a student. So you definitely want to take any opportunity to learn about what you might be doing after you graduate. And I think the best way to do that is to build a network on campus that you can stay connected to while applying for internships and even after you graduate.
Awesome. Thank you. And as KRISTEN Kettering also mentioned, the CCPD is an integral part of securing an internship. So if you haven't set up your Handshake account, we highly suggest you do that moving forward sooner than later. And also your hub advisor will talk about that as well with you when you meet to discuss your future plans. So we're going to talk about courses now. I think that students often ask me for advice on electives and whatnot. So we figure we'd ask the professionals, you know. So based off your experience, are there electives like economics, like Haas electives or computer programming, et cetera, that you feel are helpful as a mechanical engineer and also maybe your marketability in seeking employment? We'll start with you, Mike.
Sure, I'll share some what we call insights from the field in talking to dozens of companies across the United States as we were trying to figure out what companies want. So I'll give you that, and then I'll give you my opinion a little bit. So basically, um, there's several things that people that hit on for us. One is data analytics, the ability to take large data and extract intelligence from it to extrapolate to use information and math to benefit the company, not just for intellectual like stimulation, but really to give back to the company. How does it tie into helping the company? That could be a non-for-profit, that could be a for-profit, it could be working to solve world hunger, or it could be to make the fastest jet out there, right? It could be from anything. So that if that sounds kind of commercial oriented, it can be towards many different directions. I guess my primary advice would be seek out the things you like first, because at the end of the day, don't do things that you hate. That's a different from being uncomfortable. Do things that make you uncomfortable, but also find the things that you like. And then just generally speaking, the more computer programming savvy you are, that enables things to just get done faster as a result of using computers and computing power. That's never a bad thing because all industry is based at its backbone on some type of computer network or source. So you're always going to be able to add value to any organization if you have those kind of useful quote unquote computer skills, which change over time. Right now, Python's huge. Probably will be around for a while, but if you have Python skills, whew, people love that.
Awesome. And how do you feel, Yashna? Anything that's helpful for what you would recommend so far?
I mean, I agree. I think like definitely take classes for things you're interested in, but I think my number one advice is also just take classes and things that you're going to learn something new in. I know like a big mentality, and oh, I shouldn't say this in front of staff members, but a big mentality is to take the easy A classes for electives. Like you want to make your schedule as simple as possible, and that's definitely important to balance out like the super hard technical classes, especially as you get into your junior and senior year. But also some of the most fun classes I've taken here so far are classes where I'm hands-on with something completely new and something that really challenges me. So if you are not strong in coding and you've never done coding before, you have to take CS1 anyways, or Intro to Computer Programming. And that's just MATLAB and C, but definitely take CS1 or take another coding class if that's something that you want to learn. Or you don't have to take LITEC anymore for mechanical engineering, but I thought it was a great class to learn about how to work with embedded control systems, and it's just a completely different skill set. And I think the one thing that you get to do with your electives is take classes to build up your resume, especially in that skill section. Because when you apply for jobs, they'll look for those keywords for different skill sets. So just like Michael was saying with coding and Python, it's the same thing with being able to use Arduinos or Raspberry Pi, different building skill sets with woodworking or just being hands-on in the tool shop, Python, C programming, just all those different tools. And classes are the best way to learn it because you have a professor who's dedicated to teaching you that skill set, because it's a lot harder to learn it on your own than in a class where the purpose is to learn that skill. So I'd say try and pick electives that aren't necessarily going to be that EZA, but where you're going to find a skill you can add to your resume and will help you in the future.
That's awesome advice. And we're all about finding those courses that have the EZA, by the way, but I like your advice much better. So moving forward, let's talk about courses that you struggle with, because, you know, last week was, or it was actually this week, was the first IEA exam last week. I don't know what day of the week it is. And, you know, a lot of students were a little blindsided by that whole experience with it being one of the first exams that they take in college. Can you guys tell me about a specific course that gave you trouble within your curriculum and what you did to overcome that, whether you used resources, study groups, all that kind of stuff? So you want to start, Mike?
Sure. I guess I think I'll give two really quick examples. One, I took analysis of modeling and of uncertainty, which is MAU. I think it's still a course. I did horrible in that course. I got a C in it. Only class I ever got a C in. You learn Monte Carlo simulations in that course, and then I went on to use Monte Carlo simulations and write custom Monte Carlo simulations for thermal radiation heat transfer for 6 years in my PhD. So one, don't take it that if you don't do well in a class that you're never going to use that or you won't like that topic forever. And opposite side, I felt I had a horrible professor in one class, and I said, this is my life. It's my choice. I'm not going to be bitter about the fact that I don't like what they're doing. So I'm going to take ownership of my own success. And I think that was my first thermals and fluids class that gave me the confidence to end up pursuing my PhD in thermals and fluids and heat transfer and energy systems. So those are kind of like two ends of the spectrum experiences.
I love that. And MAU is definitely a course that's still part of the mechanical curriculum, a favorite no less. What about you, Yashna?
My worst course to date was Introduction to Electronics, which just absolutely killed me. It was during one of my busiest semesters on campus too, which didn't help. Marie and Karen are both my hub advisors, so they both know I always like overload my schedule, especially with the dual major. And first, I do not recommend that. Take as normal of a schedule as you can and do not overload, because that's mistake number one. But also when I took IE, it was my sophomore year and I was not good about going to office hours. I was not good about asking the professor for help when I needed help. I also didn't really like the professor for the class when I took it, so I didn't want to ask for help. But what got me through that class was just, I had a couple friends in the class, so we created a study group. We tried to get through it together. But I also told myself, like, at the end of the day, my grade is not the most important thing. Sanity comes before that. And it was a class I knew I was not going to get an A in, no matter how hard I tried. I ended up with a D plus, my worst grade at the school so far, but it still passes. Like, I'm still going to graduate with my dual degree, did great in other classes. So it was really me telling myself, okay, this one class does not define me. It doesn't matter if I do poorly in it, as long as I'm still passing it. I'm doing what I need to do to get through the class. Obviously, this was not like my best moment at school, but I have a lot of other classes I'm still learning from. I have other classes to like bump up my GPA, because you don't want like a horrible GPA, but it also is not the most important thing from your education. So that was really what got me through, which sounds really bad of just scraping by to pass the class, but there's going to be one or two where you're just like, yeah, we're just going to get through this one.
You know what? I think that's a really good point to bring up, because so many students put so much emphasis on one course, and you know, overall you're taking so many, and one or two in the overall scheme of things is not that big of a deal as long as we're passing, right? So I think you really do bring up a valid point there. Thank you. This question is specifically for Mike. Because you were a transfer student, obviously you weren't here in your first year, but can you talk to our students a little bit about your journey from being a transfer student to a graduate student at RPI, and then faculty to RPI? I think many students are interested in pursuing undergrad research, and most of them are probably unaware that it can lead to a doctoral degree that they actually get paid to pursue. So can you explain how that works to us?
So, so I'll speak to the transfer part real quick, and then I'll speak to the other part, research, faculty stuff. I felt that I didn't go to a good high school. I didn't feel like I was ready to be at RPI. So I think basically that was just an awareness and being realistic with myself. And so I wanted to get my math and study skills up to par. And so I did that at community college. When I got into when I came to RPI, it was refreshing because I had taken my studies seriously. And then when I got to RPI, I felt like a lot of people there took their studies seriously. It was like coming home, is what it felt like when I got at RPI. It's a very unique culture, and that actually kind of, in some weird way, made me kind of fall in love with people at RPI. Less the faculty, great faculty, but our students, the staff, everyone at RPI is just it's a tremendous community. It's very unique. As for undergraduate research, another tremendous opportunity that RPI provides is there's all of these cool nationally, internationally funded research projects going on at RPI. Honestly, RPI is kind of bad at advertising them, so you're going to have to go digging and asking, like, do you have undergraduate research? Do you have undergraduate research? What do you do? What do you do? Like, just go ask people questions. And then if you get involved in research, the cool thing about engineering and science is when you do your PhD, generally speaking, you don't pay a cent for that. You get a stipend and you get your PhD at the same time. So you literally get paid to get your PhD if you get into a PhD program. So, I mean, that's a tremendous opportunity to think about. The only reason I put it that way is because some people say I could never spend that long in school. That's literally why I didn't become a vet when I wanted to become a vet. I was like, I'm going to spend 9 years in school. Then I spent 9 years in school anyways. So just there are opportunities. If you want to do that, don't think about the price, because it's not even near what you may think it is if you don't know about like funded graduate programs. And RPI is just not one location for that. There's hundreds of, if not thousands of schools across the United States where you can get your PhD paid for. You get paid and you come out with a PhD. So tremendous opportunity. Not to mention, I got to live in Spain and do research in Madrid, Spain, for 2 months as an international research fellow. So I mean, just the opportunities are crazy. They're all over. Search them out. You'll find one that's going to fit you perfectly.
Awesome. Thank you. And this question pertains to your dual, Yashna. Can you talk about your decision? I know that you said in high school you were involved in robotics, and that kind of pretty much put you into that path. But you know, talking about the balance of everything and credit overloading, just give us some advice on the duals, because I have so many students who come and talk to me that they want to declare a dual, they want 3 minors, and they want to do all of these things. And the ambition is definitely a great thing to have, but talk to us a little bit about your struggles and how you feel about the dual now that you're about to graduate with it. Congrats, by the way. So I'll let you take it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been hard. I won't lie. Doing a dual, especially with two completely different majors, is always really, really hard. I have friends who've done ME and Aero, and that's a lot easier because there's only like 4 different classes that you add on, and it just takes up your electives. But with the electrical dual, you have almost completely different curriculums. So I don't have any free electives really. Most of my electives are decided, or I pick from a list of 4 classes because that's the only thing that works in my schedule. And it's a lot more credits than I would have taken if I had just done mechanical. So it definitely is a lot of work. It's not worth doing if you're not actually passionate about those areas. There were a couple times I thought about dropping the EE part of it, especially because post graduation, I'm leaning more towards the mechanical hands-on aspect of work instead of the electrical. But I really enjoy my electrical classes too. And especially my sophomore year, I liked my electrical classes more than mechanical because there was a lot more labs, there was a lot more hands-on work, and that's just the type of person I am. I'm a hands-on learner. I don't like the textbook learning, just learning formulas and doing plug and chug, which is what a lot of mechanical is your sophomore year until you get more into lab classes and you decide on which electives you want to take. So because of that, that like helped me decide like, okay, I do want to keep this because right now this is more hands-on. But then it flipped junior year where my mechanical classes were more fun and my electrical ones became very technical and very textbook focused. Like there was still a lot of labs, but it was also a lot more nitty-gritty about those electrical concepts. And I think the important thing with the dual is just knowing, is it something you want to do? Is it something that you're really passionate about? Take those intro courses and take the first courses you take for your dual or something you want to do a dual in, take it as if you're going to minor in that subject instead. And then if you really enjoy it, then keep taking classes and then see if it fits as a dual. Because most of the classes I really enjoyed in electrical, I could have just minored in it instead, and it would have fit in the same way. The one perk to doing a dual is that it does make you stand out at career fair and when you're applying for jobs, because I'm not competing necessarily with just mechanical engineers. I'm not competing with just electrical engineers. I have both, and that does give me a leg up when I'm applying for jobs. So I will say that is one perk to it. Um, One thing I had considered was doing CS instead of electrical because CS holds a lot of reign in the STEM field right now. Like CS is a really coveted degree. If you do that, like, or if you have any skill sets in it, you can go a long way. But again, it's like, what skills can you learn on your own versus what do you need a degree in? My degree will say mechanical and electrical, but my resume shows like I know Java, Python, C, like things that I learned on my own. So you can learn all those skills on your own, or like I took classes where I learned coding. So that's where it's really, doing a dual is great if it's something you really want to do, and especially to make you pop out at career fairs and stuff. But if it's not something you're passionate about, it is a lot of work. And you have to balance it out and make sure you're not overloading on any semester. That's the most important thing, is don't overload on semesters, because I did that and it was a little bit of a mistake, especially since I'm graduating early, so I could have just eased my schedule and graduated in 4 years like a normal person. But yeah, it's just about, is it worth doing? And you need to decide like, do I want this dual? Are the classes something I really like? And is this something I want to do once I graduate?
That's awesome. Thank you. And those are questions that you can have a conversation with your hub advisor about that too, because we're here to help you kind of narrow down your path and pick and make that determination if a dual is right for you, or, you know, what your path ultimately looks like. And one more thing I wanted to mention before we move on, I know Mike and Yashna both mentioned Python as being a helpful thing to learn while you're an undergrad. And we have a new curriculum that Mike and Yashna did not have. They were in the older curriculum, but there is a Python course. It's a 3-credit course that you take in sophomore year for the mechanical engineers, where it's called numerical computing or numerical methods. So that does teach Python, and we can always, you know, expand on Python knowledge, but you do get a foundation in that course, just an FYI. So moving on, I think we're going to talk about beyond undergrad. a lot of majors suggest a master's degree and, you know, licensing and whatnot. Just curious what your point of view on both of those things are. And let's begin with Mike.
Well, obviously, for full disclosure, my job is literally to develop master's degrees for working professionals. So I may be a little biased here. I can tell you what companies tell us rather than what our students tell us, right? And the reason why they are seeking out master's degrees. I'm not saying this is true all across the board, but generally speaking, in technology-based companies, as you climb up the corporate ladder and get more and more responsibility, the master's degree, not having a master's degree can hold you back. That's like kind of one perspective. At the same time, if from the positive side, a master's degree can give you a really unique skill set, and it pairs so well with working, because if you've ever been in those classes where you're like, I have like no idea how I am ever going to analyze the stress concentration in a curved something, I don't know, whatever it is, you will like have an application immediately if you have a job when you're getting a master's degree. They just pair really, really well. So I'd say master's degree in mechanical engineering. If you love mechanical engineering, yes, go that way. If you want to do maybe some more leadership and you like big thinking, you could do systems engineering or an MBA. I do think that master's degrees, generally speaking, can provide you some additional opportunities later on in your career, but it's not something that you necessarily have to be thinking about within the first year or two. So, you know, you have time. You have some time.
Thanks, Mike. And for you, Yashna, what was your perspective? I know that you said you're working in January, but do you have what are your thoughts? Was that your original plan, or were you pursuing something further? Can you elaborate for us?
Yeah, so when I came into school, my original plan was to do co-term just because, like, in high school, it felt like everybody said, like, a master's is the way to go. I'm also, like, a first-gen student, so to my parents, both of them were like, you have to get a master's, you can't get a good job without a master's, and, like, this is where I'm going to contradict Michael a little bit in that, like, that was definitely true, like, maybe 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, but I think, like, the industry keeps evolving, and it definitely depends on the type of job you want to do. Right now, like, just based on, like, my internships I've had and even discussions I had over the summer, because it was something I discussed with the team who I'll be returning to in January, where they were asking me what I want to do post-grad, and when I told them, like, yeah, I'm not really interested in getting a master's right now, they were like, yeah, that's great, like, and my take on it is, if you don't have something you want to get a master's in, it's not worth doing just for the piece of paper. Like, it's not worth doing co-term or like spending 2 years in a master's program for the sake of having a master's. I think it's worth it if, like, you really are interested in a field, or if you're really interested in a professor's research, or there's something you want to get out of that master's program. But my take is that I don't have anything I want a master's in right now. So there's no point for me to stay in school for another year or two just to get a piece of paper and maybe a small pay bump when I graduate, when I could just start working and start getting more experience in the field instead. But it's something I might do in the future. Like, if I decide 3 years from now, like, okay, I do want to go back and learn about this, or I want to get an MBA because it's something that's going to help me in my future promotions or something, then I will go back. But right now, it's not something I'm interested in.
I think that's great advice as well. Thank you both. You know, something that we tell the students in the hub is plan for everything that you want, and also be open-minded to change, you know, because like maybe in Yashna's case, you land your dream job, so to speak, in your senior year. You never know, and your plans could ultimately change despite what you originally were going to do. We're going to leave some room for questions, so I'm going to throw one more out to you. And this one I think is particularly relevant just because we're dealing with first year students. So I want you both to transport back to that year. And if you guys could tell me something that you wish you knew as a first year college student that you know now, like let us learn from your mistakes, so to speak. You want to start, Mike?
Yeah. I thought that this whole experience of undergrad, grad, PhD job was like this linear thing that you can plan out. And uh it's not. Just like put your axe to the grindstone, work really hard, do the best that you can, be good to people, and life will present you with the things that you need. If you continue to do good work, be passionate and good to other people, like it's just gonna like happen for you. And so I think that's true in classes, in your career, in your relationships. Like if you just try to do good work and be good to people, stuff turns out generally okay. So like maybe my advice is work hard, but like just take a deep breath and don't worry so much, because I worried like way too much and it held me back. So yeah, that's my dad advice.
It's good advice. I think it's definitely relevant. How about you, Yashna? Any thoughts on first year?
I would agree. There's like that saying, work hard, play hard, and like it's definitely true. Like RPI is definitely a school where everybody works really hard. It's a little hard right now with COVID also because you're not able to socialize and meet a lot of new people the way you would. But my advice would be like going back to freshman year, I wish I socialized more. I wish I like really spent more time developing friendships and my social network. And I definitely did that. But there were a lot of weekends where I decided to spend the whole weekend studying for 2 exams where I really didn't need to spend the whole weekend studying for it instead of going out and hanging out with my friends. And I would say that's the one thing you should definitely do. And this like applies like throughout college is like definitely work hard, like study, don't neglect your classes or anything, but do spend time making friends, doing fun activities, doing things you normally wouldn't do, like things you weren't able to do in high school or things you may not be able to do once you leave college. Like do weekend activities, go out, have fun, and like try new things while you're here, not just in a school capacity.
That's great advice too. Before we even open it up to questions, I just want to thank you in advance for both of you being here because I learned a lot, and I'm sure the students that have been here have learned a lot as well. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Marie, and I know that there were a couple of questions, and hopefully we can rouse a couple more. So I'm going to go on mute. Marie, you want to take it over and ask the questions to our panelists?
Sure. I want to say thank you to both Mike and Yashna as well. I always really enjoy both of them, and tonight is no exception. So we have two questions, both from Sebastian, who's a question meister tonight. And I think, I'm going to break up this last question into a couple. So I think it would be really helpful, particularly for the freshmen. His question is, what are the steps you took to work up to and obtain your jobs, and how do you plan on continuing to work up to further successes? We kind of talked about the PE a little bit earlier. Karen, you had asked that as part of one of your questions. But I think just on a really super practical basis, like Yashna, you've had 3 different internships, right? How did you get those? And I think particularly for someone who's a freshman, I think that's a little intimidating. And like practically, like how did that work?
Yeah. So I mentioned this earlier, but network is really important. And I'm gonna admit, like upfront, when I came in from high school, like my parents were on my back. They're like, you have to have a LinkedIn, you have to connect with everyone, like build up your network. And I was one of those kids who was like, oh yeah, whatever, like network, everybody says that. But it is true. And sometimes it feels a little bit like cheating to ask people you know for a reference or to ask for that first interview for a job, because then you feel like, oh, but it's not like me who's getting it, right? Like someone else is getting it for me. But that's a total lie. Like any connections you have are just helping you get your foot in the door, and you're still going to go through any interview process to get that next interview or to actually get the job. So it's not cheating in that sense. It's something you just have to get over, and it's always hard the first time. So my first internship I got through one of my best friends from high school's mom. So her mom worked at the company at Arista where I got my first internship. And it was one of those things where I was talking to my friend about it and I was like, I really want to get an internship. I don't know what to do. And she was like, well, I'm hitting up my mom for a job if you want me to put your name in the pool too. And I was like, that seems so weird. Like, I don't know. That seems so weird. But it helped. Like, she recommended me to someone who she knew was looking for interns. She gave them my resume. The rest of it, like, I still did the work. Like, I still interviewed twice for my job. You still have to show that you are a good candidate, but it helps get your foot in the door. For Collins, Engineering Ambassadors was my foot in the door for that internship, and that they have a special connection with UTC, or now they're RTX, but they have like a special connection with them as sponsors. So that was my foot in the door. And for SpaceX, I connected with an alumni who I knew from my freshman year who was working there when I was applying. And I hit her up and I was like, hey, I just put in my application. I know there's a referral process. And if you're comfortable with that, could you please refer me? So it's really like hit up your network. And with each job you get, that in itself will help build up towards like future opportunities, and it will keep building on each other. Like 3 years ago, I never thought I was qualified enough to be at SpaceX, and now I'm going to be there full time after graduating, which is like a dream come true. But it all builds up in baby steps. Like you're not going to get your dream job from your first step out the door. Or like if you do, that's super awesome, but it could take time to build up. So definitely tap on your network and build it up as you're here.
Yeah, Yashna, I think that's great advice, and I'm so glad you talked about the kind of weirdness about it. Of like you feel kind of guilty approaching people that you know in your life, right? But I can tell you as an old person that like if you get a request like that as someone who's been on the other side, if you have the opportunity to meet a new young engineer or a new young person in whatever field you work in, and you get to kind of discover them and give them a boost and give them a shot, they love that, and then because you're such a diligent person and, really talented, that you're going to reflect well on anybody who recommends you, so you have to kind of, it's hard, but you have to kind of try and look at that other side, but totally agree.
Yeah.
And we're all like trained to be independent and find your own thing and all of that. And, you do sometimes have to rely on people, and absolutely, once you get that first one, then the next ones are, become easier and easier because you've got that resume that shows you've performed and you've been successful at an internship, and you can get references from people who knew you there. So it's almost like the first one is the hardest, and especially, hard if you've got to kind of, swallow your pride and put the arm on people that in other ways, right? So I'm so glad you spoke to that, because the Career Center, if you go there, they'll always talk to you about the value of networking, as will your parents and, your hub advisor, all of us. But, it's kind of hard to take that first step. So I really appreciate you mentioning that tonight. Mike, how about you? Like how all, the jobs that you've had, how did you actually obtain them? Like what was the process that you went to get the positions that you've had?
I think that Yashna is more qualified to talk about this than I am. I would, if she wants, I think people should listen to her advice over me. Honestly, I have been very fortunate. I've searched out opportunities and people that I looked up to, and then as a result of trying to do my best work with them, they have offered me positions that aligned philosophically with where I wanted to go. I always wanted to innovate in the educational space because I saw a lot of things that were happening in education that I didn't like, and things that my professors did that I didn't like, and stuff like so. I mean, I guess it goes back to the just continue to do good work and be good to people, and opportunities will present themselves. And that doesn't mean I wasn't looking for other opportunities, but they presented themselves. So do good work and be good to people, and be active. I mean, that's it. I think that there's really not much more to say to it than that. Do good work and be good to people, and things will happen for you. don't be bad to people, and don't be lazy, and you're good. Like, it'll work out. I don't know. Yashna has better advice than I do. I like Yashna. I shouldn't even be on this panel. It should just be Yashna.
I think your advice is every bit as valid as Yashna, Michael Hughes. So I've got a couple more questions, a couple late entries that are great questions here. So John's got a question. How long do projects stay under design and analysis before going to prototyping? How boring does it get to focus on a single project for too long? I'll throw it to Yashna first, and because you've had a couple of different, actual experiences in mechanical engineering where you built things or got to observe the build process. So could you speak to that? And if you don't know, that's okay too.
Yeah, I can speak to like my experience in it. And again, like my experiences are 3-month segments in internships. And it can get hard. It depends on the company again. This is in no way like saying like some companies are better than others, but when I was at Collins, they are a legacy company. They work on airplanes. The group I was with builds technology that's going on new planes. But if you think about how often a new plane model goes out, it doesn't happen very often. Like there's maybe one every 5 years. Like it's a 5-year long process to design and implement new parts. So it's a much slower process. And so you're still working on things every single time, but the design process becomes a 2-year process as opposed to what you're used to in school of it being a 2-week process. And there are people who really enjoy that because you get to go into the details of that design. Like you work on so much in that design, it becomes so complex. For me personally, it's just like, wow, I cannot spend 2 years focusing on like one thing. Like I can barely focus on something for an hour. So it depends on the person. And that's where like different companies do different things. Like SpaceX is very much in a startup mentality. So when I was there, it was like every week there's a new project to work on, and not that one project ends in a week. You're still working on things that are going to take a while. Like it takes years to build the rocket, but you are in a constant like turnover phase of like what project is a priority. So it depends on the company. It's so different, and it also depends on product. Like airplanes are going to be a much longer design timeline than circuit boards will, or versus toy companies where they come out with toy designs. Like I have people who worked at what's it called, Hibisco, where they build all the toys and stuff, and they have a 1-year turnaround rate where they will design and build and manufacture thousands of toys within a year to meet that Christmas timeline to sell toys, So it depends on the product.
And Yashna, I think that you speaking to corporate culture is really important, because I think that's a lot of the value of having multiple different internships, right? If you can like get one of those legacy companies versus a startup, a big place versus a small place, those kind of differences in corporate culture are huge. And I think by doing those internships, you get to see what resonates with you, and you get to feel like, okay, I could do 20 years of my life doing this, or oh dear God, I could never do that, so I think that's really, really good advice. And it's funny because when you started talking about what you didn't like about the first company, I was just sitting here thinking, wow, she belongs at SpaceX. Like that is absolutely where she belongs. So I think that was perfect. Mike, do you have anything to add? And then I do want to get to one more question that Caleb popped in here as well.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things for the working professionals that I focus on is engineering project management. And so we work with companies from every industry. So basically, engineering analysis is highly dependent on the industry and the rate of change within that industry. So if you look at how often new planes come out, that's why the engineering and analysis is so long, right? Whereas if you look at like you're designing a mouse for a computer, well, man, there's new mice like every week, right? So you can look at that design and analysis phase based on the industry. The industry generally is a big dictator of that. But to your other thing, not enough people prototype. So if you go to a company and they're not prototyping, you will positively impact the company by forcing them to prototype as early as possible. That prototype could literally be made out of paper and cardboard. It will be invaluable. So push the prototype now, don't wait. And I promise that people in your company will thank you for it.
Ooh, that's really good advice. That's really good to know. Thank you, Mike Hughes. So I do want to get to Caleb's question because I know we're trying to finish approximately on time, and we're kind of not too bad. And then anyone who needs to pop off, please feel free to pop off. But I do want to get to Caleb's question, and anyone can answer this. What are the best types of summer mechanical engineering internships we should look for if we want exposure but don't know exactly what type of engineering career we want to pursue?
Yeah,
Mike is forcing Yashna into this.
I mean, this is like what I had a question about when I was a freshman too, and it's really just different experiences. And this is one thing I will say too, is it gets a little hard once you have your first job. Like the first job's the hardest, but it can also make your second job harder because now people are gonna look for that key term from your first application. Like my first internship was in manufacturing. So then when I was applying for my second internship, I wanted something so different from that. Like I did not want to do manufacturing again, or I didn't want to work with circuit boards again. Like I wanted to do something different. But the issue is now that you have an experience, people are like, oh, well, we want you to do something similar because now you have experience in this, so you should continue it. So I think it's like important for you to upfront be like, you know what, I want to do something different. Some companies will really value that and let you try something different. And it's also like skills that you build in classes saying like, I have this skill set that I want to apply that I've never applied in a real world experience. But there's no like one type of internship. I would say different internships, different companies. I worked for 3 completely different companies in 3 completely different roles. And at the end of that, I was like, okay, yeah, this isn't the best fit for what I want to do after graduating. Not that it's what I want to do for like the next 10 years of my life, but definitely for like the next 3, I kind of know where I am. So just try and get different experiences in different places. That's like the best advice I can give you.
I think that's really solid. You would agree too, Karen, right? Based on all the students we've advised over the long time we've been advising.
No question.
I think it's just generally good stick your toe in a bunch of different things. The time to, experience all this stuff is now, right? So, I actually had a student in Aero several years ago who really, while she was an undergrad, really wanted to get a lot of experience with different companies. And she just kept like going on co-op for like a semester and a summer and coming back and then leaving and coming back. And like, I think she was at RPI for like 6 or 6.5 years, only because she decided before she graduated, she wanted to really have a clear idea of what kind of company, big, small, and she worked for Apple and she worked for Google and she worked for a bunch of different places. And she really had a sense of what she wanted to do permanently when she finished that. The only downside to that was by the time she came back, she said, Marie, I don't know anybody here anymore because all the students who were here with her had gone, So that's the only downside I warn students about. If you're going to be here for 6 years, you might not have a lot of friends left by the time you graduate for commencement parties. So I do want to wrap up because we promised our panelists and all of you that we would get you out of here. I'm going to hang out for a little bit, and I don't know if either one of our panelists want to hang out for a couple of minutes. If anybody wants to ask any other questions or pop on. Karen, any last words? The only other thing I want to mention is when KRISTEN gets back next week, she's going to send everyone who attended tonight an email that'll have a link to the recording. It'll also have the contact information for KRISTEN Kettering, our CCPD person. And if Mike and Yashna have given permission, it will also have their contact information as well. So, you'll have that information. Usually it's the next day, but since she's on vacation, it'll be a week, but keep an eye out for that and you will get that. And if you have any other additional, questions, feel free to email Karen Lewis, your advisor. She knows Mike and Yashna well and can get them those answers. I am again going to apologize that we did not see Christina Pacifico tonight. She and I texted over the weekend, so I know she was very much planning on coming. I can only imagine that startup mentality of Elon Musk there, Yashna. Probably, she had a command performance someplace this afternoon at work. But Karen and I are going to put our heads together and figure out, if we can do a one-on-one with her and pop that into the link that you'll get as well. So again, thanks everybody for attending. Thanks to our wonderful guests. It's so awesome to see you guys, even if it's virtually. I'm sorry we're not all in the same room like last year, but it's good to see you guys. And thank you to all of the students who came tonight. We really appreciate it. And again, we'll hang around for a little bit if anybody wants to type additional questions in the chat, or feel free to put your camera on and your mic if you'd like to ask a question live and in person. We're all about that as well. But if not, have a wonderful rest of your night, everybody.
Thank you.